Well, good afternoon or good evening if you're in the beautiful USA. And I am Bruce, aka the guy in the blue shirt, as I'm known here. And my business method is simpler, faster, better. I am so delighted to welcome Angel to our show all the way from Thursday morning in Hong Kong. So, hello, Angel.
Hello, Bruce. Hello, everybody. It's morning in Hong Kong, so good morning from Hong Kong.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were kind of just joking that Angel's already in the future.
Yeah, because we're 16 hours ahead from the US time. So pretty interesting.
Yes, and Angel was kind enough to interrupt her getting ready in the morning as well. I didn't realize that was peak time for everybody getting ready. So thank you for doing that. All right. Hey, Alexandra Rosso, Russ Hedge. All right. We already got some of my wonderful followers and co-hosts, co-live streaming hosts on here. So amazing people. All right, so we're going to discover the world of the difference between kind of controllers and CFOs, and yeah, I was amazed at your statistics. As I recall, you've placed more than 700 different people in their field, right? So,
Correct. To be exact, I just made another placement yesterday, so that would make it 712.
712
positions.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, and I thought I was doing pretty good with 165 lives. I mean, that is staggering.
Well, I've been doing this for 20 years, so it's, like very hard to compare, because your live, it's definitely not like 20 years. Back then, like LinkedIn didn't really exist. So,
right.
But yeah.
It's a couple of years. So tell us about the array of, 712, that's an admirable number. I mean, that is unbelievable. The stick-to-itness that must have taken. So talk about the array of positions that represent 712, Angel, and talk a little bit about, different countries. You help people in different countries as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. I am originally from Hong Kong and received my college education at UCLA. And after I graduated, I started my career actually in accounting. Didn't think it was for me. It wasn't my calling. So I went back to my hometown, Hong Kong, and just kind of got rolled into recruitment. And because I have the finance background, I started recruiting finance account professionals almost 20 years ago. And the positions that I worked on would be financial controllers, finance directors, FP&A directors, and most importantly, CFO, who is at the head of the whole department. And if you think about any industries, right, like retail or consumer products, pharmaceutical, etc., every company or every industries will need a finance department to sort out all the financial reports. So it is actually a very important function. So my job is, obviously to present them into, different types of job opportunities to understand their career aspirations. I personally have placed one candidate 3 times from when he was just a finance manager to a few years later, he's developed, both professionally and personally to financial controller, and to my last, placement to a CFO. So I am very, very fortunate to witness a lot of the growth journey and work with them, in the professional growth journey of these finance professionals.
Doesn't that make you feel so good?
Always feel good factor. It's kind of like I'm helping people, but also I'm making money. So it's a great kind of like combination. And also to be able to just kind of grow with them throughout this, 15, 20 years journey. It's just like amazing experience. Like there's so many amazing finance professionals out there who it's because they're kind of like being seen as a back office function. A lot of them always kind of like sit in the probably the corner of the whole office plan, and they're not as visible as like the frontline staff or the salespeople, etc., etc. So it's very a feel good factor in just bringing them out to become more visible and to let people know how important a finance function is.
Sure. So do you remember the years that you were at UCLA?
Okay, well, that would definitely expose my age. But no, not to worry. I graduated in the almost close to the millennials, like year 2000s.
Okay, good. How did you get to go to UCLA? Was that by choice or just? I'm just curious how you ended up there.
Well, I've always wanted to study abroad. I actually, because Hong Kong was a British colony when I was growing up. It was. So I went to an international school, British international school. But it's pretty interesting. Like we're really influenced by the American pop culture and drama, TV series. And back then, I loved this TV series called Beverly Hills 90210. I don't know if any of our audience will it's probably a very young audience here, but I just like, wow, like, oh, I want to go to LA. I want to, go study there. So that's how I applied for, a number of the UC schools, and I got accepted by UCLA. Right. And that's how I started my journey. Yeah. And I also worked there for a couple of years and stayed in LA after graduation.
Awesome. Yeah, so a great example of global experience. I'm glad you went to a British school because I went to a British school too.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, but that was, you told me that. And then how long have you been in the States?
I've been here since 1994. And so I had to unlearn more than I had to relearn because.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's why like the accent was kind of like a mixed.
Sure, everyone assumes because you talk English, you know exactly what's going on. Well, that's the least correct answer. So yeah, I had to unlearn and relearn everything from mailing systems to taxation systems, and everything in between. Even grocery systems, I couldn't even fathom out what to buy at the grocery store. So amazing. Yeah,
the jargons and the terms are completely different, like trash and bin, airplane and airplanes. Yeah, and exact to the S for organizations, and it's really interesting.
Well, good journey. Measures as well. So I learned pounds and ounces, and I went to the SI system, then went to the metric system, and then had to go back to pounds and ounces. So I couldn't even fathom out how much sugar or flour. I couldn't even fathom out how much to buy of anything anymore. So.
Yeah, but it's always a good learning journey where you are in a new place and you're just constantly reinventing and evolve yourself. So it's a really, really, interesting experience. Yeah. Just like I did 20 years ago.
All right. So you mentioned controller and CFO a few times. And I know even though I've been in business and industry, 4 decades or more, I still get confused between, what the controller's role is and what the chief financial officer or CFO's role is. So maybe enlighten us a little bit on the differences. So,
Sure. A financial controller or a financial control function mainly focus on the reporting side, which is like the actual numbers. And they also set, standard operating procedures for other departments, sales, logistics, ITs to follow. And it's more reporting focus and very number crunching. But from a financial controller to a CFO, and that's a whole different ballgame. Because as CFO, you are acting as the finance spokesperson of the whole company. You would need to attend to board meetings, business managers meeting, and try to, I would use the words translation. It's basically translate the finance lingual into business lingual for people to understand what does this number mean and what does this number entail. So the big difference between a controller and a CFO is business acumen, or what I say, how do you develop your finance business partnership? It's where you be able to speak business term based on your finance expertise to different departments of an organization. So your commercial acumen, business acumen, as well as communications and interpersonal skills is very important. And that's the part that most finance professional has to develop, because they spend a lot of time just doing number crunching, doing reportings. And I remember when I was an accountant, I spent whole day just looking at the balance sheet, and that was like 5-6 hours. And then 6 o'clock, I went home and I didn't get to talk to anybody. Right. So in order to be a CFO, then you definitely need to be visible. You need to put yourself out there and talk to your business partners. And when you look at the whole organization structure, you have sales department, you have marketing department, you have IT, HR, and they all need to look at your reports, right? So in order to you have to take the initiative and proactive and reach out these department heads and stakeholders, and make the business better, basically.
Yeah, so I always love it with my guests, which is why I don't ever rehearse our live streams, because I always find that I'm more alike than disalike with many. And I actually had the opportunity 3 times in a row to partner up with the same chief financial officer. His name was Mark, and I've never forgotten him. And I was an operations guy, operations, production, distribution. Mark and I got pushed into the situation where we had to make some rapid business turnaround happen. So Mark and I, of course, he's the numbers guy, so he got all the credit for the results. He was a great communicator of that, and I felt like, like the controller in the back room, nobody saw. And interesting enough, he got promoted to another division, and then several months later, he called me out and he said, "Hey, Bruce, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you know what I'm doing, because you see all the reports I turn in." He said,
right.
"Hey, you want to come do that again with me?" So then I went and worked with him in another division, and we did equally such a great job. And shame on me, because he got the credit again through the numbers.
That's what I said, visibility and how you present yourself in front of the management is really important.
Right. So he got promoted again.
Well, with your help, yes.
I did okay. There was a little bit more visibility. And then the funniest thing, and it happened for the 3rd time, about a year later, he called me up and the same thing. He said, "Hey, Bruce, what are you doing?" I said, "You know what I'm doing. You see my report." He said, "Hey, man, we've got the worst one to actually go do. Will you come help me?" And so I came and helped him. And on that one, I got the credit, which was I learned a few things.
Finally, good on you.
Finally, yes. And I said to him, "Hey, you're not going to go do the presentation to the execs. We're going to go do it," because he did the 2 before the 3. So, so it's amazing.
You learn your lessons, and okay, 3rd time is the charm. So let me do some of the presentations. Right.
But it was still a triple win, because more importantly, the teams involved in that. I mean, it was a pretty extreme turnaround we had to do. I mean, we were losing $10,000 a day, and all the customers weren't getting their stuff, and all the customers were threatening to leave. And I mean, it was pretty ugly. So, but we did a great job, and we preserved the team's integrity. But more importantly, we got back all the customers that we were about to lose. And we were so successful at it that our competitor came and hostilely purchased us. So that's how good we did it. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's an impressive accomplishment. And that's what CFO does. And and that's part of the track record when we as recruiter assess their experience? Like, have they turned around the business? Have they not only like looking at the cost? Basically, we used the term like driving P&L, which is
Right.
help the business in driving profitability and profit and loss. So basically, how to help the business driving profitability, increasing margin.
Right.
And that's a particular area that we're looking at the quality of a good CFO. And especially if they have business turnaround experience, definitely even better. And that's what you demonstrated really great. It's just like a live examples of what business finance partnership is all about. It's not just reporting. It's getting into the business, rolling, getting your hands dirty and turn the business around. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it was so the sequel to that was interesting because Mark actually helped. We didn't really want to be purchased by our combative competitor, so 4 of us actually tried to do the management buyout, and actually Mark prepared all of our financials for us, but we weren't successful because the competitor really wanted to take us out, and they paid couple $1 million for goodwill that you can't, as you know, you can't raise money on goodwill very easily. So they came in and paid a lot more money than they should have for the company. But and then the final leg of that is they fired everybody else in the team apart from me, and then I had to move the business 200 miles. So it was it was like a bowl of spaghetti, looking at all different directions that whole thing went. But I learned a lot. About numbers and really communication and numbers. And so,
yeah, it's the process that counts. So that's a very interesting story. Yeah, like merger and acquisitions, it's kind of like two people two red people getting married. You have to do the due diligence, but background check, and it's not only you two involved, it's just like your family involved. So when we talk about like being acquired or acquiring other companies, it's always just a really long process and very complicated, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it was just the process that counts. That you actually find out more about your company or more about your job in this organization. So
it was interesting because takeover day was interesting when the new owner showed up. So that was a pretty chaotic day and a lot of hard conversations that day. But I think the emotional, you said about the emotional part of what you do. I think the most emotional piece for me is I literally, on the last day when we were in the building, I went around and turned all the lights off and unplugged everything that was left in the building. So it was literally this thriving company with all my great teams working in it, and they all moved, and I literally went around and turned the lights off and unplugged everything and closed the door and walked away. So it was like, it was like leaving a long, successful marriage, that's for sure. So, but,
a lot of reflections, right, at that point. But, it can be. It's a good analogy.
Well, you drew the analogy, so I'm just playing off of your story, which is
very true, very true. So that's what finance is all about. It's not as boring as anybody with a thought. Like, if you are truly a participative finance professional, you can make a change in the organizations in a way that you could never imagine. But it just really takes someone with that mindset and being willing to develop, the additional skill sets to get from one level to Mark, into being a game changer in an organization. So This is what a true CFO leader is all about.
Yeah, well, the cool thing with Mark was he was pretty astute, because he would say, well, I don't understand that, or, you know, why are you negative on this, or why are you plus on that? So in the end, I learned to say to him, hey, Mark, meet me in the parking lot. And I used to walk the process with him. And when I walked the process with him, he'd be like, oh, okay, now I get it. You know, when you can convert the numbers into seeing them in action in the real life process. And that's what made him so good, because he was willing to, you know, leave his nice office and come to the, you know, not so nice manufacturing area that I ran, and I'd show him the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, and then he'd realize it. And then I've never forgotten one day we were looking at waste in a certain area. He said, I just don't understand, you know, Bruce, you're losing like crazy money here. So, and I didn't understand either. So what I did is, instead of having the people that took the waste away, I had them save the waste for a day. And when we looked at all the waste that was happening, literally, we saved the waste for a day, and it was like unbelievable what was going in the trash. But then we understood it. It was like, oh my goodness, like, you know, there was parts, materials, packaging, people's, you know, junk from their lunches. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Oh my God.
So, but we figured it out. You know, we realized when you actually looked at what was going in the trash, that was the waste, and more importantly, the teams figured it out as well, because they didn't realize, you know, when we kept the whole day's worth of trash, they didn't realize. They were like, wow, there's a lot of stuff. And it was a lot.
There's a lot of stuff. Like, there are some parts that actually I can just take it and can still resell it, or maybe just like do a yard sale.
Yeah. Well, in our case, we ended up, we were throwing away stuff that we could actually regrind and reuse. So we had the ability to recycle some things, but our educational process with people around what we could and couldn't recycle was missing. We'd made the assumption that people knew it, and they didn't know it. So once we started educating people in, hey, you can keep this or not this. I mean, the amount of recyclable materials and processes that, you know, we were really good at doing meaningful recycling, and that made a huge difference, massive difference.
Yeah, massive difference, especially with in figuring out like what it's one of the root causes, like why the business is losing money. And I think one of the terms that I just remember, it's shadowing, and which is exactly what Mark has done with you. He did not. He actually went out. He did not just sit in the office and let you guys report to him. He actually went into the manufacturing, which is, like you said, that it wasn't the nicest environment, but he actually went into the manufacturing side and just went through all the different parts and operations, and then the problem, and then find out the problem is actually the trash. People are just dumping sellable items and turn it into trash, and that's why you guys are losing inventory and losing stocks that are actually sellable. So that's what I like to use the term shadowing. When you are a finance business partner and you find out a particular department it's not performing. What do you go about it, instead of having people come around and talk to you about how they run their operation? Go to the site, go see them, or maybe shadow them with like a day or two, understand what the daily routine is. And it's really interesting, to you as the CFO of the finance guy and the business operation guy together can discover something that's never been discovered before, because you now have another side, of the perspective, another side of the opinion. So 1 + 1, superpower.
Yeah, I know. In fact, it was funny because I had to change my shoes, but he would invite me over to his he had a really nice office. I had a had a pretty crappy office. But I always remember I went over in my work boots and he said, "You can't come in here with those on me." So I had to go back and get my other shoes. And
Okay, that's a really good, inspiring thing. It's like, if you want a nice office, get your finance degree, be a finance professional, and become a CFO.
Yeah, but he was.
Okay.
So 𝒂𝒚 just said hi. 𝒂𝒚, she's on, and Russell.
Hello.
Oh yes, awesome. Also loyal people in the comments, so thank you for that. And so what's the funniest? What's the most meaningful placement you've done? And then let's talk about the funniest placement, and then we'll. So
okay. Well, I would. Okay, I'll tell you one meaningful placement. And I kind of feel like I've changed this guy's life forever.
Oh wow.
Okay, well, I met him when he was just like in his 20s. He went to work for Deloitte as an auditor,
Right.
and he was working, and then he jumped out of the Big Four audit firm, and he started working with a company, in container port company. And the environment was kind of toxic. They have like the timing, you need to clock in and clock out, make sure that you're not late. So it's very micromanaging, that type of style. And he was only 20 something, and he was trying to get out. So he was doing a lot of interviews, sending CVs and so forth. And he did something quite silly. There was an interview that he wanted to attend to, but he has already kind of used up his sick leave or somewhat. And then he actually falsified a doctor's note. And that was being discovered by the HR. That's how I found out when I did the references. Right. And the HR was like, no, like, oh, you know, like he falsified a medical note. And I asked him, why did you do that? So the guy was like, well, I need to go to interview. And there's nothing I could think of in order to be able to go to this interview, because I really want to get another job. So, jump to the conclusion. I actually talked to my client. It's like, look, you know, it's in a really toxic work environment where he was being held all the time, and he is really young. He made a mistake, and it's silly. And can you give him a second chance? Because I've known him for 4 years, and I know he has potential, but it's just the right guy, but in the wrong environment. So the CFO by that time was like, you know what? Okay, no problem. I trust your words, Angel. Let me take him on. And he became like a star performer. He got promoted twice within 3 years of the company to be a controller. So that was a really interesting story about, like, you know, when you have a bad reference check, doesn't really mean that you don't really hire a guy. It just really depends on the situation. That was one story, one placement that I would forever remember, because this particular candidate is currently a CFO now. And when we met, we still like reminiscing about the past and about this particular situation, and he just forever thankful to what I've done for him. So that was, you know, one of the satisfaction that comes with being a recruiter.
Great example of, you know, one mistake shouldn't define us, but the other one there is, you know, if you micromanage somebody that doesn't need to be micromanaged, number one, they'll leave always. And number two, what you do is you limit their creativity and potential. So that's what he was able to demonstrate. He was always that high performer. It's just that the other environment didn't recognize that he was a high performer, and there was no room in the organization to let him be a high performer. So, you know, that's flourish later. You know, it's like if you got a fast growing plant and you put it in a pot that's too small, then it won't grow very fast anymore. In fact, it will often shrivel up and die. So, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so that's just one interesting and yet memorable placement that I could think of right now. You just kind of
No problem.
put me in the spotlight right now, but I have so many stories to tell.
All right. So talking that, so if people want to learn more from you and get you to tell your stories, what's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you and learn more about you?
Definitely. I have my career coaching company called 𝒑𝒊𝒔𝒐𝒅𝒆 Global. And you can actually visit the website, or actually you can look up my LinkedIn page and you can see all the contact details there. And if you are currently a finance professional looking to advance in your career, you can actually book a free consultation call with me, 30 minutes. Let me understand, what you're currently at, what you're facing, what you aspire to do. So that, whether you would like to choose to work with me throughout your career or promotion journey. And everything could be found on my LinkedIn page with my client testimonials, my company website, and even booking and appointments with me. So one of the things I also want to mention is I would be launching Becoming CFO program around in midsummer, and I welcome anyone. It's not only Hong Kong centric because my placement are international placement, which means I work with global Fortune 500 and FTSE 500 organizations like Coca-Cola, like Unilever. These are all my clients, and I can reveal that because it's a public placement. So, so anyone from anywhere in the world, if you're interested in how to navigate your finance career, do pay attention because some of the teasers will come out in the next couple of months or so. But if you have to find me, or call with me, visit my LinkedIn page, and I post content frequently. Just click the bell, and you'll be able to see my post as well and learn a lot more about this industry.
Her content is excellent, which is how I got to engage with you originally. So, and yeah, so if you want to be number 713 in terms of Angel's placement, then get a hold of her. If you want to broaden your global international knowledge through her coaching programs, then that's coming up in the summer. So thank you so much for being a guest. I'm just going to do thank you for people that hopped into the live and made comments, questions. I will go back and answer those in a minute. I'm just going to hang them a minute, Angel, and I'll do my little outtake. So,
what if your processes do not work well? Did you know you can save or eliminate massive amounts of wasted steps, time, money, or other resources? Bruce can show or teach you how. Take the next step. Visit his website at processcleanup.com and book a casual yet confidential call with Bruce. It just might change your world forever.
Hello, that's me.
Hi. It's done, right? Are we still live?
We're just going to say goodbye. So,
okay. I saw a sharing from Alexandria. And yeah, she's like, she's actually shadowed a CFO at the hospital for your clinical rotations. And you are finishing up a healthcare finance class. Good on you. Great for you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wish you all the best.
Yeah, she's about to become a doctor. So she's got her dissertation and her presentation next week. So yeah, she's one of the very few doctors in as a registered nurse that I know. So she is an amazing leader. So if you don't know Alexandria, you guys will get on really, really well, I can tell. All right, so thanks again. Just hang for a minute. Thanks everyone for dropping on, and say good morning to the future in Hong Kong, and have a safe, beautiful evening.
Goodbye from the future in Hong Kong.
Yeah, back from the future, right?